The most popular game on Steam right now lets you throw a magic ball to capture creatures that you then train to fight for you, and it's not Pokemon. But while many are enjoying the Nintendo-free experience, others are questioning the merits of the game itself. While some are calling it a lazy asset flip, some are going so far as to say it's theft. Palworld is the newest darling to take the gaming community by storm, to the tune of over 6 million copies sold in just under a week. So, what the hell is it? Well, on first glance, it's an adventure game where you get to wander around an open world capturing pals with your pal sphere to level them up for battle. If you're thinking, wait, that kind of sounds a bit like Pokemon, that's because it's exactly like Pokemon. The only twist is that Palworld has guns.
Where are you going? Look at him. Look at him.
Oh, Tansy's got a gun. He has the gun.
Tansy's got a gun.
Now, if you look past the obvious Pokemon similarities, you'll find out that this game is actually very similar to, well, like 5 other games as well. It has the survival and crafting mechanics of Ark, Rust, and pretty much every other game in the genre right now, and its movement and combat is basically a copy of Genshin Impact, which itself is a copy of Breath of the Wild. Point is, Palworld is like a lot of different games. What it manages to do uniquely is smash them all together, where you get this product where you can build a castle to shelter all your creatures before strapping them with artillery cannons and setting them off to battle. The concern over Palworld is just how closely it decides to borrow from other games, and exactly how it was done. Yes, plenty of games take from each other, and practically nothing can be original anymore, but at what point does inspiration become plagiarism? When you first hop into Palworlds, it definitely feels like a budget version of Breath of the Wild, motifs and all. But once you get deeper in, there are enough mechanics to separate the game enough so the gameplay comparisons are less egregious. However, it's those Pokemon trappings, the ones that ironically make it unique, that have become the source of the online firestorm. Now, if you have spent any time online, you would know exactly how the pro-Nintendo and anti-Nintendo camps feel about each other. Nintendo has done a lot of anti-consumer shit over the years to cause outrage, but people who blindly look past those issues will defend them to the grave. But honestly, that's a story for an entirely separate video. But even as an outsider, someone who isn't caught up in taking sides in this war, it's hard to argue that the designs of these so-called pals aren't at least a little bit suspect. To put it bluntly, these things look like Pokemon. It's to the point where people have not only made entire threads comparing the two, but some have even noticed that the 3D models of certain pals look like just slightly altered versions of their Pokemon counterparts. And the more you look at these comparisons, the more it starts to become uncanny and maybe even blatant. On the other side of the argument, you have pretty much people who don't give a shit. They see Nintendo as nothing but an evil corporation, so anything that they even partially own is fair game. Now, I'm not saying that Pokemon is the only franchise allowed to do monster collecting, and I hate Nintendo as much as the next person, but let's be f***ing real here. These things are a little bit on the nose. For this reason, those who have been critical of Palworld's success have suggested that the developers either used AI or lazy asset flips that should be considered plagiarism. Now, I want to make it clear at this point that there is no evidence that the developer Pocket Pair actually used AI to make anything in this game. As for the asset flip accusations, I have my own opinions, but I'm gonna let everyone else be the judge for themselves. But just for the sake of context, I do think it's important to bring up that Pocket Pair does have another game called Craftopia. A game that has seen plenty of its own controversy for a myriad of things, including the fact that, well, if you thought Palworld was like Breath of the Wild, this one is even more of a clone. Point is, Pocket Pair doesn't have the greatest reputation when it comes to originality, but honestly speaking, I think that's by design, and they know exactly what they're doing. In my opinion, they took 2 very popular IPs in Zelda and Pokemon that are historically exclusive to Nintendo systems, and essentially made their own version by combining the two and making it available on PC. And gamers are eating that shit up, which is why I don't think the real question is whether or not Palworld ripped off Pokemon or any of these other games. I think it's pretty safe to say at this point that it's not the most organic thing on the market right now. The real question is whether or not people care. Listen, Nintendo and the 2 other owners of the Pokemon IP are probably sitting down right now deciding whether or not they want to seek legal action. But Pokemon is already a billion-dollar franchise, so they might not care enough to have a legal battle right now. And the devs of Palworld seem pretty confident that they're in the clear. so we'll just have to wait and see how things progress. But legal dispute or not, Palworld has become one of the best-selling games in Steam history, despite not being all that original. And as people like Asmongold pointed out, maybe this just proves that gamers don't actually care about these things like originality, AI art, or asset flips, as long as the product is fun. Listen, I don't personally like the game that much. It just feels like something I've already played 1,000 times before, and the novelty of the Pokemon with guns is funny, but it wore off pretty quickly for me. And I don't love the idea of us trending down this path where developers opt out of making something truly unique to make something that is just going to get attention, even if it requires doing a little bit of cheating. Now, this isn't to say that Palworld has no shred of identity at all. It's a wacky goddamn time, and a lot of people are enjoying it, and that brings a smile to my face. So let me pass it off to hear how you guys feel. What do you think about this entire situation? Do you think that people are being unfair? Do you think Palworld is a blatant ripoff? And if so, when does fun factor outweigh originality? The game is like 15 different games in one though. Like if there's one thing we can credit them for, it's just like they're like, we'll put this in. Yeah, it's like you guys are gonna be caught up in a legal battle for so long.